When we meet Will McAvoy at the beginning of the first season, he's a guy who's lost. He's on a panel at the Northwestern School of Journalism.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
And he gives kind of one weak answer, and the moderator, that's not good enough, and he gives another weak answer.
I want a human moment from you.
And he keeps seeing this hallucination of Mackenzie, his old girlfriend, and his old EP, prompting him with a pad on which she's written, "It's not, but it can be." The craziness of it and everything that's built up inside of him has him explode into a rant about how just the premise of the question is wrong.
There is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world.
And he yells at everybody, including the student who asked the question.
And it goes viral. He goes away for a couple of weeks, and when he comes back, he just assumes he's going to come back and everything's going to be back to normal.
He just walked into his office without noticing that his staff isn't here.
Where is everybody?
And in fact, what has happened is that his staff has deserted him.
He sees this as a big betrayal, and they have a pretty loud shouting match.
Try not to make a scene.
Hey, Nicholas! You had a brand! I'm a Marine, Don. I will beat the shit out of you. I don't care how many protein bars you eat.
Don shouts at Will, "You're not a very nice guy." And that's the thing that really gets to Will.
I didn't know that people didn't like working for me.
Charlie has engineered all of this.
I hired you a new EP.
Who?
Charlie found Mackenzie McHale and brought her in, knowing not only is this woman a terrific EP, but she is the only person who can get the best of Will.
They haven't seen each other since they had a terrible breakup.
Will bursts into flames.
Well, what? When was the last time you saw her?
I don't know, about 3 years ago.
Coincidentally, that's the last time you were a nice guy.
Mackenzie brings with her her right-hand man, Jim.
Why didn't you tell me there's some kind of problem with you and Will?
His world is spinning. He's ready to bolt, but there are two things that keep him here. Mackenzie, who he's incredibly loyal to, and Maggie Jordan.
Jim is a total news junkie, and he sees the alert that there's been an oil rig that's exploded in the Gulf of Mexico, and he feels he has to follow up on it. Don, who for the moment is still running that newsroom, feels like there's no need to pay attention to that. So immediately it sets up this tension between Jim, who doesn't belong in there, wanting to follow up on the news alert, and Don feeling very motivated to squash it.
Let's throw out the rundown.
Control. Gary, see if you can get me a spokesman for BP on the phone. Get me anything to work.
If I could just see a show of hands. Who's going with Don to 10 o'clock? I'm giving you guys 2 weeks paid vacation starting right now.
Everybody out who doesn't need to be here.
Oh, Will.
Don't talk to me unless you absolutely have to.
All the first episode, we never knew what the problem was with Will and Mackenzie.
You know, you and I have something in common.
What's that?
I had a boyfriend who cheated on me, too.
Sloane believes that Will cheated on Mackenzie.
I know about Will.
Wait, Will didn't cheat on me.
According to Sloane, everybody believes that Will cheated on Mackenzie.
Who told you that?
Everybody.
And Mackenzie, knowing it was exactly the opposite, doesn't want people thinking that of Will. It's just an injustice.
I can't talk.
She's dying to get Will's permission to set the record straight, but they changed the email protocol for the office. So when Mackenzie sends an email to Sloane, she accidentally sends it to staff. So everyone on the staff gets it. And then when she tells everyone on the staff, don't read it, you have to delete it right now, honor system, one of the staffers, instead of deleting it.
I think I just accidentally forwarded it to corporate.
And of course, one of their holdings is a tabloid magazine.
Guys who sell jet engines got that email.
Newsnight 2.0 is Mackenzie's. It's the reboot of Newsnight.
This is a new show and there are new rules.
We're telling the truth, and we're not going to be afraid to do that. This is stuff that's frightening to Will. All of the numbers that Will keeps his eyes on are going to start to shake a little bit.
I've wanted this since the dawn of time.
More than numbers? Weren't you the one that told me that your audience are your only friends?
They open the broadcast with an on-air apology for the news they've been doing up until then, for essentially letting down the public.
The reason we failed isn't a mystery. We took a dive for the ratings.
Then he lays out what their mission statement is.
Who are we to make these decisions? We're the media elite. We'll be back after this with the news.
Will is a Republican who is very concerned that his party is being co-opted, and so he goes after the Tea Party.
My party's being hijacked. How is this not our top story every night?
He's really not doing anything but stating the facts as they are, but of course it's incendiary.
Based on his 0 years of experience, he's taken an oath not to learn anything new while a member of the U.S. Senate.
Well, Leona is the CEO of AWM, Atlantis World Media, and she is being briefed on the answer to the question, what the hell is going on at Newsnight? The people that they need on their side are people Will is routinely eviscerating on the air.
That was a Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate saying she hasn't ruled out a violent overthrow of her government.
Leona says, I'll fire him. Charlie says, well, how are you going to explain firing the second highest rated anchor on television?
His firing would be viewed as a noble step on the part of a corporation willing to sacrifice ratings for integrity.
You'd manufacture a reason to do it.
I've got a really good job, Charlie.
Don has an inkling that his girlfriend, Maggie, might have a little crush on Jim.
You look really nice tonight.
Don, right in front of Maggie, sets Jim up with Maggie's roommate, Lisa.
Speaking of your roommate, I had a great idea. Fixing her up with Jim.
But he also observes how uncomfortable it makes Maggie.
So this is Maggie's roommate, Lisa.
Oh, hey, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes. Yeah. Kill me now. Do it now. Huh?
Will dates very ostentatiously. He's dating in order to meet women, but he's also putting it out there and putting it in Mac's face.
I'm Nina Howard.
Nina Howard's there, who's this beautiful woman, and Will starts talking to her, and they seem to be having a good time. And he asks her what she's working on.
A takedown piece. I'm gonna take her down.
And he's, sort of naively saying, why don't you do a different story? And in saying it is obviously incredibly insulting to Nina.
Are we gonna go back to flirting, or are you gonna keep putting me down?
I'm not putting you down. I'm just saying that what you do is a really bad form of pollution
Looks like it's coming any second.
that you're on right now.
That ends up on page 6.
It sort of spirals out of control. It turns out that the tabloid exploitation of Will's unsuccessful dating is actually another example of Leona pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Back in 15 seconds, Will. Try not to date anyone before you're on the air.
Copy, Mac. Try not to sleep with your ex-boyfriend while I am.
Will is enraged that his own company would be doing this to him.
This is a huge line that's being crossed.
I made that clear to
A
her.
huge...
Everybody is angry at each other.
Have revenge sex with every woman in the tri-state area for all I care, but keep it out of the goddamn newspapers.
And right at the height of that, news comes over the wire.
Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords been shot in the head.
It's a moment that puts everything in perspective, and they have to rush on the air and report that.
MSNBC, Fox, and CNN all say she's dead. Don, tell them.
A doctor pronounces her dead, not the news.
She's alive.
I've got her alive. NPR called it wrong. She's alive.
You tell Leona that if she wants me out of this chair, she better bring more than just a couple of guys.
It's a Sunday night. It's the 1-year anniversary of Newsnight 2.0. It's having a party for the entire staff. And we find out a couple of the guys in the newsroom have gotten some pot cookies.
He said they're pretty strong, so you should just break off a quarter and eat that.
I ate 2.
So Will begins to experience the effects of THC just as news comes over that everybody's got to run back to the newsroom. There's a very important story.
What do you think it is?
I think we got bin Laden.
Mackenzie realizes,
I'm completely baked.
What?
and she's not going to let him get on the air, and he just looks at her and says, listen to me.
There is no way I'm not reporting this story.
He manages to go on the air and do a magnificent job.
For the first time in almost 3 decades, the world has no reason to fear Osama bin Laden.
Will's able to choose whoever he wants to write a cover story about the new Will, and he chooses Brian for 2 reasons. Brian is a good writer.
What about our history?
He's the ex-boyfriend that Mac began sleeping with again behind Will's back.
Can you handle him being here?
I can handle him being here, but I think...
brought him in here to punish you.
I know.
In the end, Brian witnesses this great idealistic stand, but goes and writes a hatchet job of a story anyway.
It's an incredibly humiliating story. There are a couple of prescription medications he takes, and he starts drinking, and he gets a headache from the drinking and the pills, and takes painkillers. He manages to burn a hole in his stomach.
Jesus.
Lonnie, his bodyguard, and Mackenzie find him collapsed on his bathroom floor, having vomited a lot of blood, and he's taken to the hospital where he'll be fine, but he's got to recover there. Jim's dating Lisa, and Lisa loves Sex in the City.
I need a crash course.
They have Sex in the City tours. Open-air buses that drive around the West Village and go to all the locations in the show.
We hear that, we forget about it. Toward the end of the episode, Lisa and Maggie have a fight.
I forgot I have to be at a place.
Lisa!
Maggie goes running after her, gets to the street corner, is looking for her, when a Sex in the City bus comes by and splashes Maggie with water.
Are you kidding me?
And starts shouting at the people on the Sex in the City bus.
I'm a typical single woman in New York City!
It's really bad, especially when you like your best friend's boyfriend.
When you fall for a guy and he's going out with your best friend, it doesn't work out.
Maggie?
Jim jumps off the bus and runs after her.
Were you high on the air the night we killed bin Laden?
I was.
TMI is about to run with the story saying that Will was high on the air when he was reporting the bin Laden story.
You're fired.
You can't fire him.
Yet I just did.
Okay, but if you do, your son's going to jail for a little while. You hacked her phone.
You got proof.
They blackmail them with that information. They've essentially got a confession on tape.
You know me well enough to know I do not negotiate like this.
This wasn't a negotiation.
Will did a broadcast in which he accused the Tea Party of being the American Taliban. He's able to summarize a list of qualities that happen to be shared by both members of the Tea Party and members of the Taliban, and he just makes the comparison.
They've done a kind of gutsy broadcast.
The American Taliban cannot survive if Dorothy Cooper is allowed to vote.
They've scored a victory, an emotional victory, the newsroom team has at the end of the first season.
In season 2, we have one overarching story that frames the entire season. I think in terms of tone, very much a continuation of what you saw in season 1. The show still lives in the newsroom.
If people watch the first season, they're going to enjoy following the characters that they liked in the second season. Anybody coming to it new is not going to have much trouble picking up what's going on.